Limitations of psychological inquiry. Psychologists study various mental process, experience and human behavior that we all know. How they study? They use systematic approach, and that is the reason these psychological theories are termed as scientifically proven. However, there are limitations to the psychological inquiry methods. We will discuss these limitations. Before that, please remember to subscribe the channel. Thank you. The limitations. Lack of true zero point, a relative nature of a psychological test, lack of generalizability, subjective interpretation of qualitative research data. We'll see each of these points in detail. Lack of true zero point. A zero point indicates that any other factor or triad is absent or null at that point. So, at a zero point, any factor or triad is absent. For example, physical sciences have 0 point. Whenever we measure or weight anything, we start measuring it from 0 value. For example, if the length we measure, we start from the 0 and then measure it. Maybe it is 5 inches, 10 inches or whatever it is. And likewise, the weight also. We start measuring from the 0 till what the weight is. 10 kg, 15 kg, whatever it is. So, in physical science, every measurement starts from 0. But psychological measurement, they lack the availability of true 0 points. For example, we cannot say that a particular person has a 0 value of intelligence because every person has some level of intelligence. And outward stimuli always impact human behavior to a certain extent. So we cannot say that a person's intelligence is 0. To measure various psychological factors, what the psychologists do? They arbitrarily assign certain points as 0 points and then measure the phenomena with respect to these 0 points. So, the psychologist assign 0 points and then they measure the phenomena with respect to these 0 points. Relative nature of psychological test. We conduct psychological test and the score we get are not absolute. Why? Because we score various psychological attributes by comparing them with other relative factors. To get the psychological test result, we compare with relative factors. So, they are not absolute values. For example, if we rank 3 subjects, say A, B and C as first, second and third respectively, on the basis of the mark they obtained in the IQ test. So, A comes first, B comes second and C comes third. And out of the 200, the first rank holder, that is A, obtained 140 IQ score. So, A got 140 and the second rank holder B got 130 and the third rank holder got 90. So, A got 140, B got 130 and C got 90 score. Here, the IQ score difference of the subjects A and B is very less. That is, they got 140 and 130 and the difference between these are very less while comparing it with C, because C got 90 and the difference is much bigger than the difference between the A and B. So this shows that the subjects are not ranked according to their actual level of intelligence, but they are ranked by the comparison method. They compare A, B, C and then ranked, and that is not their actual level of intelligence. Lack of generalizability. Every psychological test is designed by keeping in mind certain factors that is related to a particular context or area. In fact, majority of the psychological tests that we encounter today were designed by conducting various research in European and American region. Usually we follow the textbooks from other countries. So those books contains the studies that they have done in their country, and most of the psychological theories are formulated by taking samples of Western population. So this psychological test may not give accurate result if these are applied to the Asian or African population, because there are cultural and behavioral difference in different regions. So before conducting any psychological test, it should be properly checked whether the particular test is generalizable or not, because every single psychological test cannot be used universally. So those are region specific. So we need to analyze whether it works in our culture or our country, whether it can be generalized. If the test is done, whether it can be generalized in our country, that we need to check. If it cannot be generalized, then we won't be able to use that psychological test. So that is a limitation of the psychological inquiry. Subjective interpretation of qualitative research data. Psychologists conduct study. For that, they collect vast amount of data, and these data include feelings, behavior, perception and other psychological factors. And there is not any proper degree to measure these factors. So what all factors the psychologists are collecting for their research, there is no proper degree to measure these psychological factors. So every psychologist interprets the research data in his or her own way. So there may exist difference in the result obtained by different psychologists about the same factor. So if a 10 psychologists study same thing, they interpret things in their own way. So the result can be different. Hence, it is always preferred that the particular psychological inquiry or case study should be done by a panel of psychologists, and there should be proper discussion between the psychologists. Rather than conducting study by individual, what should be done is to make a panel of the psychologists, and the psychologist should conduct proper discussion before the final result or formulating any psychological theory. Let's have a quick recap on what we have learned. The limitations of psychological inquiry, it include lack of true zero point, relative nature of psychological test, lack of generalizability, and subjective interpretation of qualitative research data. Hope you like this video. Please share it with your friends. Thank you and keep smiling.